So everybody, welcome to the community call. It's been we didn't host one last week. We released a podcast last week, so we're back this week. And yeah, it's been a fucking crazy week, all things considered. You know, FTX blew up, SBF blew up, Alameda blew up. But as always, just as a precaution, like we are completely unaffected by this. We have literally no affiliation with FTX. We have no affiliation with Alameda, anything like that. So we're not touched by any of this contagion as far as like we know. I don't think there's any way we can be touched by it. So all good there. Nothing to fret about. But outside of that, we made I think 4 new governance proposals a day or two ago. So there's 4 new RFFs on the Commonwealth. If you want the actual links to them, just go to the announcements channel. They're all there, but we'll kind of walk through each one one by one here in a second. But there's an RFF to change RL Butterfly to conviction voting. There's an RFF to integrate Butterfly into Pirex, so PX Butterfly. There's an RFF to extend our auditing budget by 100,000. And there's an RFF to update some of the details around the Strategic Asset Committee. So maybe we could start with the RL Butterfly conviction voting proposal. I don't know, Funky, if you're available, if you can kind of walk through this one a little bit.
Yeah, so this is something the community's been talking about for a while, and kind of reflected by what Curve does with their conviction voting, where if you lock your Curve 1 or 4 years, you can get more voting power. To kind of similarly reflect the fact that people who lock are long-term aligned with the protocol. It kind of makes sense that those people have a greater say in governance. In addition, by giving RL more votes, it reduces the kind of risk of having somebody a governance attack by borrowing governance tokens and then initiating a vote and then being able to vote. Like this is what happened with Bean. This also happened with I think some of the Aave and Maker proposals, where some of the big funds were borrowing Maker and Aave to get their governance proposals through. So it's pretty straightforward. Right now, Butterfly has 1 vote, RL Butterfly has 1 vote as well, and the governance proposal basically proposes to change the RL Butterfly to either 2, 3, 4, basically increase the number of votes. What we'll probably do is put multiple, like a few options, and people can choose whether they want to do 2, 3, 4, or 5. But obviously we're not limited to doing 5. It really depends on what the community is, and if there's people in the community who think that it should be worth more, then we are definitely open to putting those options up as well.
Cool. So yeah, this one's pretty straightforward, all things considered, and like Funky mentioned, there's like a bunch of options to vote on. I'm kind of looking at the proposal on the forum now, and we see a lot of different opinions on like what the actual ratio should be. So it looks like people are in favor of anything 3-to-1 or over. So it looks like that'll end up kind of being the split in some way or another when it actually comes time to vote. Anything anybody else up here wants to add to this proposal?
Oh yeah, there was one other thing. I think I can't remember who had said it in general chat. I think it was CavFam. They were worried that if PX Butterfly does happen, that it kind of makes the conviction voting moot. But PX Butterfly would not have any governance rights, kind of the same way that PX CVX doesn't have any governance rights unless you do an RFN. Actually, no, there would be no governance rights. I think that's like when we talk to like Convex or Curve or even GMX, the concern was always about like the delegated voting. So I don't think we'll have delegated voting for that. So PX Butterfly won't vote. I think Joker Flux saying BBCs, yeah, they don't want to vote. I mean, for the BBCs, it really depends on how Pink would want to do it, but yeah, I would say that there's no voting power.
Yeah, I'd also just add on to everything and say like yeah, it might seem like a small vote, but some of these rips that you'll see go up to the forum and snapshot in the coming weeks are like really crucial for us as we start to like transition to more on-chain governance. So you'll notice a lot of governance proposals in the same vein as this one, just to help us accelerate the big push next year of making governance, more on chain and more decentralized.
Yeah, and we're gonna touch on that too in a little bit more detail, Sammy, because I grabbed that question you were responding to in general earlier this morning, so we'll be able to touch on that after some of these proposals as well, because I know people are curious about like what the plans are there. So the next proposal outside of conviction voting is the integrate BTRFLY into Pirex proposal. So this is very similar to the PXGMX proposal, and I know we don't have KP here today, so maybe like Never and Funky, you guys, or even Sammy, we can kind of touch on like what this is, what the goal is with this, etc.
Yeah. In the nature, any locked yielding token, at some point, will get convexed. So we just wanted to, make sure that it's convexed by someone we trust, and I guess the people we trust the most are us in this space to keep the integrity of our token. So we wanted to create like all the great features and that Pyrex supports. With with the auto compounding, with the liquid token, and uh, yeah, also having a liquidity pool. It really made sense for us to actually build it out before anybody does, and it's also we're kind of the best to do it since liquidity for us is way cheaper than anybody else in terms of our own token. So yeah, so we think it's around the right time to to ship it out, and especially with the first cohort of unlocks coming soon. It really it was kind of the perfect time to offer this product to users, since
Yeah,
now there's finally going to be liquid BTRFLY around.
yeah, and it's a pretty popular request too. I think people have been asking for PX BTRFLY before Pyrex was even launched. So so you're finally getting PX BTRFLY, and yeah, I think as long as people approve it, of course, and yeah, I mean all of the details are in the proposal. I'm sharing them in the town hall text chat. It's very straightforward. If you read the Pyrex GMX one, or if you used Pyrex Convex, then they're all kind of the same. So next proposal is to extend our audit budget by 100,000. The context behind this one is that several months ago we got a budget for a 6-month period pre-approved, and the audit budget was included in that sort of total budget. And so far we've used about 93,000 of that $150,000 audit budget for June and November. So we proposed Funky proposed in this proposal that we kind of extend that budget by 100,000 to allow for a second audit of PX GMX and PX GLP, and potentially PX BTRFLY if that RFF passes. So essentially, audits are expensive. We have to get them to put these products out on the market. They're kind of like they're the safest thing we can do, right? Audits are never a guarantee, but they're the one way that we can get close to a guarantee of security, and we make sure that we take those very seriously, as you all know.
And we use trusted partners.
Yeah, we're not using some like shady partner that costs like 10K and ends up just like doing a really shitty job. KP, Never, and all the rest of the devs have really high standards for like what's acceptable in terms of security audits. So that's kind of the goal of this one. I don't know if there's anything that anybody else wants to add.
Yeah, I'll add some stuff. So the thing with the reason that this audit is so expensive is because and the reason it actually took so long is because PXCVX, it wasn't rushed, but the code that was produced was very isolated and non-composable for the case of CVX, right? So it was basically all architected and designed around the design of CVX. And with PX GMX, there was like a greater strategic goal in mind to make the code base so composable in a way that we could just like plug in. End goal obviously is to just plug in new ERC20 addresses, and then Pyrex markets are just spinned up like that, which is why you see uh, the, the time delta between CVX to GMX was so long, but now GMX to Butterfly is like we're talking about weeks, right? And that's because this big audit, which is why we think it's like so important to come to governance and get more funding, is crucial, because this code base is like puts us in a position to like scale Pyrex just as fast as uh like hidden, not as fast as hidden hand markets, but um
Pretty
like
fast.
gets, yeah, pretty fast, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's expensive, and we've already gotten it audited by the boys at Fairlog, um, and now we're looking to get this extra 100K to see it through Code Arena. So yeah, I guess just like keep that in mind when you voice your opinions on Snapshot.
Yeah, and Code Arena has the potential to be pretty impressive. I know there's oftentimes that people run sort of auditing programs through Code Arena, and since you have so many people coming in from various like with various backgrounds and various skill sets, they sometimes find different different bugs and stuff that maybe a regular auditor can't find. So it's worthwhile to throw it on there and make sure that it gets battle tested and that a lot of eyeballs are on it. So make sure you vote on
Yeah.
that one, or if there's any questions, like go leave questions on the forum or ask them here, and we can make sure they get answered.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're looking at 3,000 lines of code for this next GMX push, uh, next Pyrex update as a whole. So I'm sure you can imagine it's a lot for Code Arena and stuff.
Yeah, all written by me. In case anybody, I mean, people probably weren't wondering, but in case you were, I wrote all of them. So,
All
um,
in Viper.
yeah. Okay, so the last and final proposal is this sort of update to the Strategic Asset Committee. Funky, I don't know. Do you want to walk through this one a little bit?
So basically, I can't remember. I think it's like February, March of this year, we passed the Strategic Asset Committee proposal. And basically, what it meant was that we would have the policy team would have the ability to manage the treasury in a way where we were rebalancing less strategic assets for more strategic assets, and the aim there was really so that we could get the yield that we're getting from CVX, for example, and convert that into tokens, which we thought were more strategic for the DAO, such as stablecoins or CVX, CRV, etc. And since then, the protocol has really changed with V2 and the kind of focus on products around governance, cash flow, etc., as opposed to being a rebase token where bonds were the kind of main source of value. So that kind of change away from the change towards products and the kind of given market, has meant that the strategic asset committee proposal is no longer adequately kind of relevant for a lot of the kind of treasury moves that the policy team thinks would be useful. So this update basically wants to expand the kind of assets under purview. So under the original proposal, all assets were included except for Butterfly and bonded assets. And this proposal basically wants to make bonded assets fair game, although we'll caveat that we're mainly looking at the kind of non-core positions. I'm not going to name any names, but there are certain assets which have not performed as we had thought that they would. So this proposal will allow us to have more flexibility, especially when the markets are looking a bit rough.
Yeah, and it's not even 100% about performance either. It's also about just like the value from a partnership perspective and from like a productivity perspective. Like, do we get what we need to out of that asset? That's why it's called kind of the strategic asset committee, right? Like, we need to make sure that there's some long-term strategic advantage to holding some of these assets, and then outside of price performance, and sometimes there isn't. exit. You said you're talking about Luna. Yeah, we need to exit our Luna bags apparently. Cool. If there's no questions about that one, I think that one's also relatively straightforward. Basically, just give a little bit more flexibility to the strategic asset committee. So,
I think there was some concern you brought up before, Funky, right? On like what assets are under our jurisdiction of the committee.
Yeah. So currently all assets are fair game except for bonded assets, and we want to basically make it so that all assets are the same except for Butterfly.
yeah, and I think Aura.
And Aura
as outlined by whatever the
Yeah.
RIP number is. I can't remember. I think it's 27.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Basically, yeah, just trying to use the assets to best support, the DAO and the kind of rollout of products, etc. And
Cool.
Partnerships.
Joker Frog would have been nice to sell the toke a couple weeks ago, Keck.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, going on to the next thing that I want to touch on. I saw Sammy kind of engage with this earlier, so I think it's while we're talking about governance, it's worth bringing up. Cab Fam in the general chat. I'm just gonna read this message and we can kind of just like address it. He said our core team is full of Chads, but given the recent events highlighting the carnage caused by human factor, any updates on our end goal of automating aspects of the redacted ecosystem? Then he goes on to kind of say some ideas he has around that. But the big question is, are there any updates on our end goal of automating various? By automating, I'm also assuming he means decentralizing. So we'll kind of say both of those, automating and decentralizing aspects of the redacted ecosystem. And I know, Sammy, you had some thoughts on this.
Yeah. I think everyone, or maybe me and Never, are the most involved in it, actually. So you guys might have seen the multisig a week or two ago, if anyone is tracking that. I'm not sure if you guys are. Spin up these things called pods, right? So you've seen we spinned up the hidden hand pod, the policy pod, Pirex pod, and an emergency pod. And this was sort of the beginning, along with some of the rips that you guys have been seeing recently, the beginning of a general transition, the general transition based on, like this alignment within the core team, at least, to start decentralizing the operations in a way that doesn't fragment, I guess you could say, the efficiency and coordination of the whole core team. So the idea that we have in mind is to work with these guys. Metropolis, I've mentioned them before. They're a pretty solid group that's funded by Andreessen and stuff like that. And create a system where essentially that if there's a vote that goes up, it is actually enforced in chain. So for those who are like maybe not familiar, if someone comes to the DAO and says, hey, raise the hidden hand fees to 5%, it would include the actual code to do that. And on if it gets passed, like it will actually get executed in real time. So that's the main goal of it all, is so that there is actually no multi-sig here, and all the decisions are sort of like enforced on chain. Obviously the team stays intact, and the way the team would operate now is in a much more transparent way, even though I think that we have been relatively good with you guys in being transparent and stuff like that. It's just a question of like, do we think it's do we think it's the right way to scale the operation out into multiple products, hidden hand, Pyrex, Dinero, and just keep everything behind closed doors and stuff. So if you guys see, we created those pods, and over the coming, I think coming into the new year, you'll start to see people get allocated and voted into these pods. And what you can essentially imagine is that when a funding proposal goes up, we're saying, okay, can we fund the pod with X amount of money? Whoever's in charge of Hidden Hand and Pirex and stuff gets that money and uses that to pay for, like web operations, audits, salaries, etc., etc. And we just become more of a flat architecture. We just become more of a flat structure, rather than this sort of like setup we have now, where I'd say like we control like 100% of the project. But I've voiced this before. I'm sure you guys are aware like why the system was set up the way it is, and it wasn't to have control over all the money and stuff. It was more just like safeguards, which I think we've done an extremely good job, more better than most DeFi projects, and putting ourselves in a place where like we don't necessarily have to like do that anymore, because it is a liability.
Yeah, I would say that.
Maybe,
Go ahead.
yeah, you can go ahead. I was gonna say like maybe Never, you want to talk about the technical side of things and like the precautions we're taking there too.
Yeah. Let's touch on that instead. I can go after if Never's here. I'll give it 2
Yep.
seconds. All right, yo, you here? Did you hear
Yeah.
Sammy's question?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. To go more on like the automation thing, and having these pods, it actually also really helps us with kind of like podifying risk, or like like kind of like EOA slash automation risk. So that if we can wrap our control, like our contracts in access control and give access control to these pods, we could start delegating certain methods of users to EOAs, and EOAs being either speeding up processes to specific team members, or to actual like key management systems like OpenZeppelin and Defender, so then we can more safely actually automate our systems, so to give a better user experience to all of our products, where it doesn't require humans to go like from the humans to actually go affect to actually people claiming the yields, but it would be happening a bit more instantly. And yeah, I really feel it wouldn't really be able to be done in the current system that we have, because we would be taking on a lot of key mismanagement risk.
Yeah, and what I was gonna add after Sammy finished was, I think the setup that we've had up to now has been extremely helpful in allowing us to move quickly and pivot and launch products quickly, etc. But the end goal has always been to decentralize over time. And Figgy dropped a tweet that has a chart in it in the town hall text chat that kind of shows what the pod breakdown looks like. And Joker Frog asks like what the timeline looks like for this. I think it'll be slow and steady. This isn't something we just want to like jump into head first, just because that sounds chaotic. But also, I think we're one of the first projects sort of implementing Metropolis, if I'm not mistaken. I think they might have a few that they're working with, but we'll be definitely among the sort of first cohort, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, we want to take our time with this, make sure it's set up properly, get feedback along the way, etc. Yeah, it is very important to implement it with confidence and get it right. So it's one of these things where it's much easier to get it right the first time than it is to like rush into it and then have to start undoing things, right? Because all of this stuff we want to get approved by you guys along the way, because that's the way we operate here. So just want to make sure that it's all set up properly, and that we're not rushing into something where whereas we can take our time and make sure it's set up correctly. I don't know, Sammy, if you have anything to add on timeline and stuff like that.
No timeline. Figgy's recording one of the wiretap episodes with the guys that we're working with, Metropolis. So you can hear directly from them their stance on it, how they imagine it to work. And we connected them with a few other DeFi projects too. So maybe we won't be the only ones, even though it's good to be ahead of the curve with this kind of stuff. And well, I'll add another thing on like the emergency pod. What we're sort of thinking is creating a structure where certain individuals can step in and perhaps like block a malicious governance proposal or a governance attack. before it gets implemented, and then all those proposals are sort of put up to vote to see if it was the right decision or not. So we really put ourselves in a position where we make sure everything is safe. There is safeguards, but new safeguards that were not in place before, that is still act in a decentralized way. Yeah. And timelines, I think this is like something that we'll see uh, be announced and communicated for the rest of the year, and then slowly get implemented through Q1.
Cool. So yeah, we'll be talking to you guys a lot about all of it along the way. So nothing is going to come as a surprise to any of you that are super active here. Cool. Now that we have covered all of the governance stuff, that took a while, but a lot of moving pieces. On CapVam as a question. So multi-farm dashboard. I guess this falls under governance a little bit. I don't know. Is anybody up here close to the multi-farm effort? If not, I can give the update. Cool. I can kind of give the update since Greens isn't here, but I think we had some internal conversations with multi-farm about the implementation, and there were some security things that we wanted to get lined out before we pushed it live. So the best way to phrase this is that, like, essentially the implementation is done. I don't think we were totally satisfied with the way it was done behind the scenes. There were like open questions that we had about the sort of technical stuff. I'm not a front end developer. I'm only a well-versed smart contract developer, one of the best in the industry, but I'm not a front end developer. So they took a while. They delivered some code that I think Greens and the other front end guys were not totally okay with. So they had a lot of suggestions to make. They had a lot of conversations that they went back and forth on, and we are slowly but surely getting there. But it's basically done. It's more of a conversation about actually pushing it live on the site.
Maybe for those who are curious, I can give a bit of like an idea for what the issue was, or is it not worth getting into it?
Yeah, I don't think it's worth getting into. Because yeah, we can just leave it at that. It's not really worth going down. But basically, we made our suggestions. I think they're getting fixed. So yeah, soonish, guys.
Yeah,
sorry.
they are. It is actually like they have begun fixing it based on our recommendations, so that's good.
Yeah. So we
It's already taken
apologize.
so long. Like, I don't think taking the extra step to make sure everything is safe is like the worst thing.
Yeah, we basically just wanted to make sure that an abundance of caution was taken before like pushing it live on the site. And yeah, again, we apologize for it taking so long. A lot of it was very much out of our control, and we try to control every bit of it that we could. I've seen it. It looks good, which is the good news. So the data looks good. It'll look cool on the site. Just, yeah, fixing some backend stuff. Yeah, Joker Fraud KP is not here. So I mean, the good news is we can get 2 jokes out of KP on the next call because he missed this one. And we'll make sure that he gives both of them. Cool. So now that we're wrapped up with governance stuff, we can move on to some of the product updates. RO Butterfly, I think we had a distribution last week. Was it last week, Funky? I don't remember. Had to have been last week.
2 weeks ago, because the next one is next week.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, I don't remember what I was gonna say. I don't remember what I was gonna say, but yeah, distribution went out as usual for the last distribution. If you haven't claimed it, make sure you go claim it. If not, you can just let your rewards accrue. I think gas. So it was last week. Okay, I was like really confused. Gas might be high this week given the circumstances of all of the things that have happened, but maybe it'll go back down last week, and everybody can claim their rewards, relock all the rest, and then start getting prepped. For some of you who are super lazy and want all this handled for you, given that the PX Butterfly proposal passes, you'll be able to toss your Butterfly in there instead. So quality of life improvements are coming there. For Hidden Hand, we had an interesting week because first off, let me go over the balancer and aura volume and stuff like that, and then we can cover what Badger managed to pull off because it's pretty interesting. So It looks like this week the week of the 7th. Yeah. So this week so far, we have about 232,000 in bribe volume on Hidden Hand, mostly for Aura and Balancer. And then last week we had 400,000 in bribe volume. So super consistent bribe volume for Balancer and Aura. Things are continuing as usual there. But this week, a sort of new market was not really a new market. It's been a market that we've had since launch, but a new briber entered this market, which was Badger. They entered I think they put a 6,000 Badger bribe on their new FXS gauge and had like huge success from it. Sammy, you tweeted the numbers yesterday, I think, but I don't remember what the actual numbers are. But they went from having literally like 0 votes on their gauge to now I think they're the top voted gauge for Frax. So
other than the Frax one.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, yeah, they're one of the top. I think there's number 2 behind, obviously, like the Frax USDC one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they're over Frax USDC, the UDV3 one.
Like the Frax BP.
Oh yeah. Probably not that one, but yeah, they're like one of the top Frax. They have 7.7 million votes, which is insane.
Yeah. So it was, and obviously Convex matches it based on TVL that comes in. There's not really a vote or whatever, and that means that Badger potentially is looking at $8 and $9 in rewards. $7 or something last I checked yesterday, in rewards per $1 of bribes. The reason we're making a big deal of this is because we talked internally about just like strategy and stuff like that, and you might have there's like some people here, some faces that come every week, are familiar with the idea of us wanting to go after and penetrate the curve and convex market for bribes. And you take a good look at the issues that exist with both. One, the CRV efficiency, kind of one that's beginning to become evident with like BAL, for example. And then you think about Convex, which has monopolization issues between Vodium and delegates and stuff like that. So if you look really hard across the curve and convex space, there wasn't a clear path to how to get in there without like maybe us diluting the people or incentivizing it super hard. But then you look at the FXS market, which is what everyone is pairing against nowadays anyways, right? This Frax BP. And we think that using our big VEFXS stack, using the hidden hand market that we've built already, and using the trusted partners that we have, these guys like Badger, Alchemix, like all these guys, we think that we're in a position now where we can go head to head with Vodium, but just using Frax instead of curve and convex, because convex, obviously, it doesn't matter whether it is the convex emissions, it doesn't matter, right? It just matters how much liquidity is coming into that. And then with FXS, there's just a higher efficiency than CRV. So like we're pushing this really hard because we think like we finally cracked the nut on how we think we can take over that market too. So yeah, if you have VFXS, go vote for them. We are rolling out this sort of like subsidization program to help us compete with some competitors in the FXS voting market that has like lured in the biggest bribe so far for Frax, and we're talking with some other stablecoin projects now that are paired against Frax BP. So hopefully, obviously there's some really cool hidden hand stuff in the works, but I think like this should provide people the diversification of hidden hand revenue that they were asking for, and we're all pretty excited about it.
Yep, dope. There's no questions about that. I also want to share that we do have a new hidden hand market coming, I think like next week, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, if there's no other hidden hand questions, I will move on to Pirex. And we don't have KP this week, so we're just all going to have to wing it and see how it goes. Fortunately, we have some good information, and we have Never here, so go through it. All right, cool. I don't think there's any hidden hand questions. So moving on to Pirex. I think we covered this in the last community call, but if we did not, expert mode was released a few weeks ago. For those of you who are out of the loop on that, just go to the docs and read them. But basically, we're doing a phased rollout for expert mode. So right now, RFNs or reward future notes are allowed to be minted. So basically, you can mint your future yield in advance and trade them on the Pirex marketplace if you so choose. Those RFNs can then be redeemed for the bribes you would have received at the end of each epoch. It's more for, I mean, it's called expert mode for a reason. It's more for experts looking to sort of hedge their bribe yield. But yeah, for those of you who want to check that out, go check it out. It also came with a few sort of Pirex UI updates whenever we push the release. So Greens and the rest of the front end guys have been working hard on like constantly improving the Pirex user experience and user interface. So there are some meaningful changes there for those of you who are Pirex users. Outside of that, Pirex GMX is still coming. As we mentioned, we want to extend the auditing budget to get Pirex GMX audited one more time and then get that out the door. But I think for the most part, that code is frozen. We just need to get it reviewed one more time. And then, as we talked about earlier, Pirex Butterfly is finally in the works. If people choose to approve that as the next sort of Pirex integration, so make sure you vote on that. And then, yeah, I don't think there's any other big updates on the Pirex front. I mean, people keep using it. Pirex Convex is having a lot of success. If you look at the deposit tracker, there's literally new deposits every single day. They are much larger than they were in the early days. Like we're seeing $100,000 deposits, $40,000 deposits, $20,000 deposits. So people have a lot of confidence in Pirex Convex as a product, and we don't have to incentivize it into oblivion to convince people to use it, which is like a good thing, especially in a relatively competitive space. So, Narok asked, does that mean Pirex GMX after audit? Yeah. So Pirex GMX will be next, as voted on. And so once we get the second audit done, we'll get that pushed out. Any other Pirex questions up here? I don't think so. All right, cool. So bonds, UTXE is asking about. Go ahead, Funky. Did you have something?
I was gonna say I think Never might have an update if we're giving it out.
On bonds?
On bonds, yeah, we discussed it yesterday, I think.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about it. Never, do you want to give the update on what we're thinking with bonds? Or let me provide prior context first. So
Yeah.
For those of you who might have missed it, basically we wanted to release bonds a couple of weeks ago, and we are going to leverage Bond Protocol to launch V2 of our bonds. And it turns out that they got exploited. Obviously, we were unaffected by it, but we wanted to take our time, make sure that they kind of spent some more time checking over their code, all the rest, before we sort of made a decision. We were considering going back to V1 bonds and all the rest, but now we're thinking about something else, which I will let Never cover here.
Yeah. Basically, like, it was kind of unfortunate, of course, that they were exploited. But they did really make some, big moves forward in terms of, code cleanliness, kind of modularity of the whole system. It's just kind of the risks that you play when you change a functioning system, but and upgrade it. However, we really wanted to get them out, but it kind of delayed us a little bit, and we started building our own system. But been in close contact with our team for the past few weeks, and kind of was impressed with kind of like the new security considerations they're taking, and know that they're really focused on that. So I kind of saw like we had to make a lot of changes ourselves to kind of let it fit into an RV2. So we would be taking on those security issues as well if we were to launch our own kind of system. So it kind of really made sense to band together and review code together and actually support each other in that way, so that their next new release is more secure than ever, since it's just stronger together than each of us having our own system. So they're going through a Sherlock audit again this week, and we'll see the outcome of that by next week. So hopefully they can, and then 2 more weeks they can actually be back live on mainnet, and finally start to grow their project. And we would we're more. I would be more than happy we were working with them.
Cool. So yeah, pretty straightforward. Basically, bond protocol going through another audit. We're gonna keep our eyes on it, see how it goes, and go back to using them, given everything looks okay. And again, the security assumptions are kind of the same. Joker Park, are you asking for bond protocol's Twitter handle? I think that's what you're asking for. I think it's bond_protocol. Yeah, that's what it is. I'll share the link in the town hall text chat. Here you go. Yeah, so that's your Twitter. If people want to kind of keep up with what they're doing and their updates and read some of their content on how it works and stuff like that, feel free and show them some love. So yeah, the bond timeline, I guess, it's going to shrink a little bit compared to if we had to rebuild the old system ourselves and relaunch them. So that's good news, but we don't have a set timeline right now. Again, just waiting on audits. There's been some conversation in the town hall text chat that I can work into the call just for the sake of the recording. So someone asked about like buying. Were we interested in buying the CVX off of Terra or Luna or whatever they're called now? I think we tried, and yeah, they weren't interested. So yeah, we we tried. So will Pirex GMX only be released after bonds? No, that's not like a stipulation per se. I think we talked about this on the last community call. We have a way to launch Pirex GMX without relying on bonds to get it launched. Bonds would certainly help, but it's not a prerequisite or a requirement. So we'll kind of we have PX GMX and bonds, and then hopefully PX Butterfly, given that it passes, all in the pipeline, and we'll kind of just like launch those as they're ready, and there's no sort of like set order that they have to be launched in, right? It's all about just like what is safe and secure to launch, what is ready to launch, and when can we get it out. So once we nail all of those down, we'll just start shipping. We literally have a backlog now, which is like a good problem to have. Like it's always a good problem to have when everything is ready to go and you're waiting on security audits like that. That's a good sign. I have to say the joke today, no shot. KP bears that burden and that responsibility, and I will not bear it for him. So I'll just have to wait for the next call whenever KP gives two jokes. Yeah, he did fail us, and it's pretty sad. So yeah, the joke is that he's not here today. Cool.
Well,
The joke is that KP is like skiing and has
yeah,
no
he's
idea
out in the wilderness right now, bro.
Yeah.
He's probably killing wolves with an axe.
Slaying wolves.
Yeah,
with an
slaying
axe, yeah.
wolves with an axe. My bad. I probably can't
KP is skiing on CT. He's absolutely comfortable. No funds on FTX at all. RO Butterfly locked and moisturized.
Yeah, the
mean,
timing of
come on.
KP's trip to the wilderness is interesting given all of the SBF drama recently. So KP could very well be SBF and vice versa. We don't know because he
KP
disappeared
with
this
Chef
week.
Nomi, bro.
Yeah, that could also be true. So UTXE has a question or two questions really. So how is Project One Runway is the first question, and then are we good with all of this drama and FTX's contagion? So the latter half is, yeah, the FTX stuff doesn't touch us at all. So like one thing I think people should know is that like we aren't one of these projects that had like 15 million in VC funding from like Alameda and FTX, and we didn't keep it all on FTX. So it's like we're good there. We're not touched by any contagion. We don't rely on Alameda. I'm not touched by FTX losses. So I am sad for the people who are affected. Actually, I think it's really fucked up that SBF turned out to be like a soylent drinking psychopath that fucked everybody over. Can't say I'm surprised, but yeah, that is pretty messed up. And I think like there's a pretty big, tofu eating twat. I think there's a pretty big lesson for everybody. Like, don't keep the bulk of your funds on an exchange. Literally buy a hardware wallet, buy a Tangent card, buy something, and keep your funds there because a lot of these people just turn out to literally be psychotic and sociopathic. So stay away from a lot of these people. And the question about Project Runway, I think we're good. Yeah. And as Funky said, we'll have an update next week. So
Yeah, I sent a message on this last night too. You can always $ treasury anytime and get an idea for like how deep this project really is compared to some other projects.
yeah, and and the good news is like we're not we manage all the funds through the SIGI, so we're not like relying on. I mean, I've seen some stories of like some of these projects giving market makers and stuff their treasuries. We aren't doing that. One, because I don't think we need to, and two, that's like completely insane to rely on some of these third parties to manage that. Yeah. So what are some of the projects with treasuries on FTX? Yeah, it's mostly Solana ecosystem. Like,
Yeah, it's not really my place to like name and shame them, you know.
yeah, I mean,
Confirm. Can confirm we're not an Alameda owned project.
yeah, we're definitely not. And I don't want to like call out these I don't want to say the projects are stupid or call them out or make them look bad or anything. It's really just like they were led to believe something. And SPF really had this like good guy persona that he put on, and it turns out he was literally just psychotic. So feels bad, man. The Solana ecosystem is pretty heavily affected. So hopefully they get over that hump there. No shame here. Just want to ape a short. Yeah. Stable balance. Yeah. So Funky put like a snapshot of the treasury on the town hall text chat for those who want to look at it. Any other questions or things that people want to know while we're here? We have a few more minutes.
Oh, I think the other good news was that we overestimated, I think, the salaries and some other stuff, right, Funky? From like the current proposal or the
Yeah.
last one.
So that's what we're working on basically is an updated budget. We'll share like how we've done compared to the previous budget. What things we're looking at. How the treasury is doing, things like that. So so we're working on it. And we'll share it next week.
Yeah, and then the following week after that goes live, we can talk about it all on the community call. So UTXE asks, could the team survive a 1-year bear and keep building it until conditions get better? Yeah, I think we're good. Like we're really good. I think. Actually, you said overestimated salaries. Yeah,
It's not think like we are in a position to go multiple years.
yeah. I didn't mean to say it like that. Like I meant, yeah, we're we're good. Overestimated salaries. Yeah, it's a good problem to have, right? So you'll be happy to know this, XAG. I actually turned down a $7 million a year salary just to make sure the budget stayed tight. So it's one of those things. And even so, Temple called me and offered me $9 million, and I turned it down to stay here. So yeah, highly sought after. Bad negotiator. Yeah, I know. Well, I did it out of the goodness of my heart, you see. Let's see, contagion will be felt in DeFi. Large hedge funds will be. Yeah, I mean, I think after the FTX implosion and the Alameda implosion, liquidity and stuff like that will certainly start to dry up across the ecosystem. I think we're in a bear market, right? Bad things happen, and they'll continue to happen, and some projects will be more affected than others. I think this is actually more bullish for us because we're in a position to make it through this market given all of the crazy shit that has happened. And it's always the projects that survive markets like this that end up going on to like be super successful later, right? So Maker, Uniswap, etc. There's all of these projects who have survived multiple bear markets, and that's the position we want to be in. And because that's a good sign that one, we're managing everything properly, but two, we're in a position to succeed and continue to follow the industry trends as they develop. And we have so much stuff in the pipeline that we need to ship that it's crazy. Temple coin only pumping. Yeah, I think that's a interesting situation there. Cool. Any other questions, comments, concerns, things that people want to know? If not, then any surprising treasuries caught up in this that are not Sol native? I don't know. There's I think it's we're mostly just getting rumors right now, so I think we'll have to wait a couple of weeks to see how it turns out.
There was a lot of bullshit too, like saying like Aptos and Sui were like, oh, Aptos and Sui had all their money on FTX.
Yeah, I mean,
Delta Neutral APT or something.
there are certainly funds that had, yeah, and there was the J rumor about how like he was working with FTX or Alameda or FTX or somebody to do, like there's all kinds of rumors right now. I think we literally are just like we're taking them all in and just waiting to see what's gonna happen, because they just filed bankruptcy today, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it feels like, I don't know. It feels like when Luna went belly up, like people weren't like this, you know.
For sure.
But now we're talking about like SBF ran like a sex cult, which everyone was high on meth on, and it's like, okay, like.
Do you think Fake Chain is run by SBF? Like people, I don't know what Fake Chain is. I don't think, or is that like a nickname for something?
Bear chain.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't
My bad.
exist,
I'm not
bro.
privy
Never heard of it.
to the Verachain memes. I forgot that Verachain isn't real. Butterfly Savage AF. I like the old site UI, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I think like one of the things too that people need to realize about how Redacted is going to evolve over time regarding like the site and the branding and stuff is like eventually we're gonna have a suite of products that like speak for themselves, and that'll be people's entry point into the Redacted ecosystem. And so like there aren't that many people who are going to be going to redacted.finance over time. Like it'll be people going to Pirex, it'll be people going to Hidden Hand, it'll be people going to Dinero, it'll be people going to not gonna say, but there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline, and like eventually Redacted will be like at the bottom of the pile in terms of all that. By the way, Dinero will only be released after yeah. So Dinero yeah, I got all of you guys. That was so easy. Dinero will be released when it's ready. But yeah, it'll be after the Shanghai upgrade. And it's not gonna, we're not gonna give like a timeline. It's not right after or anything like that. It's a long way off. People want alpha if there's no joke. No earlier than September 2023, probably not. But I will say there will be more information about Dinero before it actually goes out. So it's not going to be one of these things that it's like we're keeping it in the dark. But we have to finish some stuff first. First SVF rugs us, and now Colton. Yeah, I'm rugging. Not gonna
Colton
say.
runs a sex cult.
I'm gonna buy. I'm actually gonna. It's not gonna say .finance available as a domain. Hold on, Google domains. If that's available, somebody needs to buy that and then give it to me. Not gonna say .finance. Oh, we're so back. That literally exists. Should I buy it?
Yeah,
All right, yeah, I'm gonna buy it.
let's launch a
Before-
cult to D2.
I'm buying this right now, dude. Hold on. All right, I just bought not gonna say .finance. So
Watch, people are gonna bribe you now to drop the alpha.
yeah. So from now on, I'm gonna put alpha on not gonna say .finance. I have to figure out how we're gonna do it and what it's gonna look like, but that's gonna be like a little secret for everybody who listens to the community calls. Maybe we can like do leaks on there. Do people like this idea? Yes or no? Yeah. All right. It looks like we like this idea. So that's what we're going to do. XAG hates the idea. Well, yeah, it's going to be not going to say .finance. All right, cool. People want leaks there. We'll come up with a way to use it. I'll think about it and we'll use it. So
Maybe we'll put it in the Pyrex terminal UI or something.
yeah. We'll make like an Easter egg out of it. All right, cool. We're starting to get to time. So if there's no other questions, then we can wrap it up and everybody can enjoy their Friday and their weekend. For those of you who missed the first half of this, as always, I recorded it. I'll get it uploaded as long as I didn't mess anything up, and you can kind of catch the first half of it. But yeah, thanks everybody for hopping on. When upload, some point literally later today. I'll work on it right after this, so in the next probably like 2 hours. But yeah, I appreciate you guys for coming to hang out every other Friday as always. Look out next week for the wiretap, and yeah, we'll see you all then. Have a good weekend, everybody. Peace.
Thanks, guys.
Sure,
Peace.
no. See you. Peace. Piggy, say your piece.
Peace.